All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful tool that belongs in every single security analyst's toolkit. I'm talking about the diamond model of intrusion analysis. Okay, let's just start with a feeling I think we all know, especially if you're new to the field. You get that critical, high priority alert, and you're just staring at it, thinking, now what? Where do you even begin to pull this thread? Well, to make sense of all that chaos, you need a way to organize all the gossip. I love this quote from Sergio Caltagirone, one of the model's co-authors. He says, threat intelligence is kind of like the gossip watering hole for cybersecurity. And that's exactly it. The diamond model is what helps us turn that gossip into a clear picture. So let's get into where this thing came from. And I want to be super clear. This is not some abstract theory cooked up in a lab. This is a battle-tested framework born from real-world operational challenges. Sergio Caltagirone, the co-author, he tells this great story about how it all started back in the mid-2000s. He and a few others at the NSA were basically asked, hey, how would you train hundreds of new analysts? And that forced them to take what was really an art form and turn it into a repeatable, teachable process. And this wasn't a quick process. We're talking 7 years of use, abuse, and real-world testing before they even published the paper in 2013. So what that means for you is that this model evolved in the trenches, not in some sterile environment. It's an intensely practical tool for your day-to-day work. Okay, so what is it, really? At its heart, the model is like an investigative map. And this map has 4 key landmarks, or nodes, that you will find in every, and I mean every, single intrusion event. Let's dive in. All right, so here it is, the diamond. The best way to think about this is like a crime story. Any intrusion, any hack, it's a story. And every one of these stories has these 4 essential elements. We call them the core features, or nodes. First up, every story needs a suspect, right? That's the adversary. This is the who, the person or group behind the keyboard doing the dirty work. Next, you've got the capability. This is the what. Think of it as the weapon they used, the specific piece of malware, the exploit, the tool that got the job done. Of course, that adversary needs a base of operations or a delivery route. That's the infrastructure. This is the where, things like C2 servers, malicious domains, IP addresses, the whole network side of things. And finally, you can't have a crime without a victim. This is the target of the attack. It could be a person, a whole organization, or a specific system. The bottom line is, without all 4 of these pieces, you simply don't have an intrusion event. They're all connected. Okay, but here's where the magic really happens. The real power of this model is using these nodes to pivot. And by pivot, I mean using one piece of evidence you have to find the next one. Let's walk through a real case to see how this works. So here's a super common scenario. Let's just walk through it. First, the victim finds some malware. You then reverse that malware and find a C2 domain. Then you take that domain, resolve it to an IP address. And finally, you check your firewall logs for that IP and bingo, you find other victims talking to it. This is a classic investigative path, and it shows you how you can dance around the diamond to build out the full picture of an attack. So our story starts right here, at the victim node. You've just confirmed a machine on your network is infected. The big question is, now what? Simple. We pivot. We go from who was attacked to what they were attacked with. So we pivot from the victim to the capability. Your whole focus now shifts to analyzing that piece of malware. And what happens when you dig into that malware? Well, you find a command and control domain baked right into the code. This is our next beautiful pivot, this time over to the adversary's infrastructure. Now that you have that piece of infrastructure, that domain or IP, you can go hunting in your own logs. You search for that C2 address, and suddenly you might uncover a much wider campaign, identifying other victims you didn't even know were compromised. See how that works? One clue leads to the next. So, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, but how does this fit in with things like the cyber kill chain or MITRE attack? That's a great question. The diamond model doesn't replace them at all. In fact, it complements them perfectly by providing the ground-level details for that bigger picture. And this right here, this clears up a ton of confusion. Think of it like this. The diamond model describes a single event, like one specific C2 communication. The cyber kill chain then takes a bunch of those events and sequences them into the phases of an attack. And MITRE attack gets super granular, describing the specific techniques used in those events. They're not competing. They all work together to tell the full story. But wait, there's more. We can get even deeper by extending the diamond. The model has 2 extra features. The technology link, which connects capability and infrastructure, answers how did they do it? And the social political link between the adversary and the victim, that answers the all-important why. Why us? Why now? Understanding that why is absolutely critical for predicting future attacks and really beefing up your defenses. All right, enough theory. How do you actually apply this tomorrow morning when you sit down at your desk? Simple. You use the nodes as starting points for your threat hunts. And here's the beautiful part. You can start your hunt from any corner of the diamond. This is what keeps your hunting fresh and stops you from getting stuck in a rut. For example, you could do an infrastructure-centered hunt looking for weird new URLs or IPs in your network logs. Or you could do a capability-centered hunt for new executables that have popped up in the last 24 hours. You can even start with the victim. Who are our most vulnerable users or systems? Are they being targeted? The point is to pick a starting point and then pivot to find related activity. Okay, I want to end with a really crucial piece of advice. This is something that really separates junior analysts from senior ones. And it's all about the danger of grouping threats incorrectly. Listen to this quote from Sergio Caltagirone again. Everyone does the A equals B equals C, therefore A equals C, when those aren't really equal signs that we're talking about. What he's saying is, just because 2 attacks use the same C2 server, it does not automatically mean they're the same adversary. That server could be shared infrastructure, or one group could have compromised another. Grouping activity is incredibly powerful, but you have to be so careful not to jump to the wrong conclusions. Look, at the end of the day, every alert tells a story, and the diamond model gives you the structure you need to read those stories, to understand them. It's the tool that helps you turn that initial feeling of, now what, into a confident, okay, here's what happened, here's who did it, and here's what we're going to do about it.